Bruce Lee, the martial artist who broke every barrier. Hello everyone, I hope you're having an incredible day. Today, I want to tell you a story about a man who changed the world, not through politics or business, but through pure philosophy and physical mastery. A man who said something that seems impossible: be like water. You probably know Bruce Lee as an action movie star. You've seen the clips, his lightning-fast kicks, his powerful punches, his intensity on screen. But how many of us truly understand the real Bruce Lee? How many of us know about the struggles he faced, the prejudice he fought against, and the revolutionary philosophy he developed? By the end of this story, you won't just see Bruce Lee as a martial artist or a movie star. You'll understand why he is considered a philosopher, a teacher, and a symbol of breaking barriers. You'll understand why, decades after his death, millions of people around the world are still inspired by his life and his message. Bruce Lee wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't born into fame. He was born into struggle. And through that struggle, he discovered something that changed martial arts forever, changed cinema forever, and continues to change lives today. Let me take you back to where it all began. Act 1. The contrast and origin. Today, Bruce Lee is a legend. His movies have been watched by billions. His image is instantly recognizable. His name is synonymous with martial arts mastery. Statues of him stand in Hong Kong. His philosophy is taught in universities. He changed how the world sees Asian people in cinema. But Bruce Lee didn't start here. He was born on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco, during his parents' visit from Hong Kong. His father, Sir Ho Tung's son, came from wealth and status. But Bruce's childhood was spent moving between San Francisco and Hong Kong, never quite belonging to either place. He was Chinese by heritage, but raised partially in America. He was wealthy, but felt displaced. He had everything except a sense of home. In Hong Kong, young Bruce was a problem child. He was skinny, sickly, and constantly getting into fights. The other boys teased him. They called him weak. They said he was too thin, too fragile, too soft. His mother was worried. She wanted him to be safe, to stay out of trouble, to live a normal life. But Bruce had other ideas. At age 6, Bruce watched his first martial arts film. Something awakened inside him. He saw a man on screen moving with such power, such grace, such complete control over his body. Bruce became obsessed. He didn't just want to watch martial arts. He wanted to master it. He wanted to become that powerful. By age 13, Bruce was regularly getting into street fights in Hong Kong. He was still skinny, he was still physically smaller than his opponents, but he was learning to fight with intelligence, with speed, with technique. His mother was terrified. She told him, "Bruce, you must stop this. You will get seriously hurt." But Bruce couldn't stop. The fighting wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about transformation. Every fight taught him something. Every loss motivated him to train harder. His mother, desperate to get him away from the street life, made a decision. When Bruce was 14, she sent him to America. She sent him to live with a family friend in Seattle. It was supposed to save him. Instead, it became the catalyst for his greatest transformation. Act 2. The early struggle and discovery. Bruce arrived in Seattle in 1959 with almost nothing. He didn't know many people. He didn't have much money. He spoke English, but with an accent that made him stand out. He felt like an outsider, not fully Chinese, not fully American, not fully belonging anywhere. The racism was immediate and brutal. In 1950s and 1960s America, Asian people faced systematic discrimination. Jobs were denied to them, restaurants refused to serve them. On the street, people would mock his accent, mock his appearance, mock his heritage. Bruce experienced this daily. It was exhausting. It was humiliating. But instead of breaking him, it fueled him. Bruce worked multiple jobs while going to high school. He worked at a Chinese restaurant as a busboy. He worked as a dance instructor. He was constantly exhausted, constantly broke, and constantly fighting against a system that didn't want him to succeed. but he had a vision. He saw possibility where others saw barriers. At 17, Bruce began studying martial arts seriously. He enrolled in a kung fu school and discovered the art of Wing Chun. But Bruce didn't just learn Wing Chun the traditional way. He questioned everything. He asked, why do we do it this way? Is there a better way? Can we combine this technique with that one? His instructors didn't like this. In traditional martial arts, you don't question the master. You follow the lineage. You respect the ancient ways. But Bruce was different. He believed that martial arts should evolve. He believed that the best technique wasn't necessarily the oldest one. This attitude got him kicked out of several schools. Bruce was told, "You're too rebellious. You're disrespecting the tradition. You don't belong here." But Bruce knew something his instructors didn't. Rigid systems die. Only systems that evolve survive. In 1961, at age 20, Bruce took on a challenge that would define his early career. He entered a martial arts tournament. At that time, Bruce was still skinny. He weighed only 130 pounds. His opponents were bigger, heavier, stronger. Everyone expected him to lose. But Bruce moved like nothing anyone had ever seen before. His speed was superhuman. His technique was perfect. His power was explosive. He won the tournament easily. Suddenly, people started to pay attention to the skinny Asian kid who moved like lightning. After the tournament, Bruce decided to open his own martial arts school in Seattle. But here's where it gets interesting. Bruce didn't just teach Kung Fu to Chinese students. He taught anyone who wanted to learn. White students, black students, rich students, poor students. His new students were amazed. They had never experienced anything like Bruce's teaching style. He didn't rely on tradition or hierarchy. He taught principles, not just forms. He taught philosophy alongside technique. One student said, "Bruce didn't just teach us how to fight, he taught us how to think. He taught us how to see beyond what we thought was possible." In 1962, Bruce met Linda Emery, an American woman of European descent. In an era of strict segregation and prejudice, their relationship was controversial. Many people disapproved. Her family disapproved. His family disapproved. But Bruce didn't care what others thought. He married Linda in 1964, and she became his greatest supporter and collaborator. With Linda's support, Bruce continued to revolutionize martial arts. He began developing his own system. He called it Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. But it wasn't just about fighting technique. It was a complete philosophy about finding your own path, about breaking free from limitation, about becoming yourself. Bruce wrote, "A martial artist should be like water. Water has no shape. It adapts to its container. It overcomes obstacles by flowing around them, not by fighting them head-on. Water is both soft and powerful. It is the most flexible substance, yet it can wear away stone." This philosophy wasn't just about fighting. It was about life. Bruce was teaching his students and the world that true power comes from adaptability, from flexibility, from understanding that rigidity leads to breaking. Act 3. The Hollywood Barrier. By the mid-1960s, Bruce was becoming known in martial arts circles, but his real dream was cinema. He wanted to show the world what he could do. He wanted to break into Hollywood and change how Asian people were portrayed on screen. But Hollywood didn't want him. In the 1960s, Asian actors in Hollywood were relegated to stereotypical roles. They were villains, servants, exotic background characters. There were almost no Asian action heroes. The idea of an Asian leading man, especially one who wanted to star in action films, seemed impossible. Studio after studio rejected Bruce. Casting directors told him, "Your accent is too strong. Americans won't accept an Asian action hero. Nobody wants to see that." The racism was institutional. It wasn't just individual prejudice. It was built into the entire system. The system had already decided what Asian people could and couldn't do, and leading action hero was firmly in the can't do category. But Bruce refused to accept this limitation. He got small roles in TV shows and films. He was often credited as Chinese waiter or martial arts extra. But even in these small roles, directors noticed something extraordinary. His presence was magnetic. When he was on screen, you couldn't look away. In 1966, Bruce got a role in the TV series The Green Hornet, where he played Kato, the martial arts sidekick. It wasn't the leading role he wanted, but it was on television every week. And every week, viewers were amazed by his fighting ability. Letters poured in asking about this incredible martial artist. The Green Hornet wasn't a rating success, but it proved one thing. People wanted to see Bruce Lee. After The Green Hornet was canceled, Bruce had a choice. He could accept the reality that Hollywood had decided Asian men couldn't be action heroes. He could give up. He could go back to teaching martial arts, which was already making him successful. Instead, he made a radical decision. In 1971, Bruce Lee went to Hong Kong and made a film called The Big Boss. It was a low-budget Chinese film. Hollywood studios didn't even know about it. But when The Big Boss was released, something extraordinary happened. The film became a massive hit across Asia. Audiences had never seen anything like it. Bruce's fighting style was so fast, so powerful, so revolutionary that it seemed impossible he was even human. The film became the highest-grossing Asian film ever made at that time. Suddenly, Hong Kong was calling him a star. But Bruce wasn't satisfied with just Asian success. He had a bigger vision. He wanted to make a film that would work for both Asian and Western audiences. He wanted to prove that Asian action heroes could dominate the global box office. In 1972, Bruce made Fist of Fury in Hong Kong. It was his most personal film, a story about fighting racism and standing up against oppression. The film's opening scene shows Bruce's character walking into a martial arts school with a sign that says, "Chinese and dogs not allowed." He tears down the sign and fights everyone inside. This scene was revolutionary. For decades, Asian audiences had been watching Western action heroes save the day. Now they were watching an Asian hero fight against racism itself. Fist of Fury became even more successful than The Big Boss. Bruce was becoming a global phenomenon. But the most important film was still to come. In 1973, Bruce made Enter the Dragon. This was the first major martial arts film to be made specifically for the Western market by a major studio. It had a proper budget, it had professional cinematography, it had a story that transcended cultural boundaries, a story about standing up against corruption, about justice, about one man's integrity. But Enter the Dragon would never be completed as Bruce Lee intended. On July 20th, 1973, at the age of 32, Bruce Lee collapsed and died. The official cause was cerebral edema, fluid on the brain. But Bruce's death shocked the world. Nobody understood what had happened. He was at the peak of his powers. He was in the best physical condition of his life. He was about to change cinema. Enter the Dragon was released posthumously and became a global phenomenon. It became the highest-grossing martial arts film ever made. It proved Bruce's vision that an Asian action hero could dominate the global box office. But Bruce never got to see it. He never got to see how his breaking of the Hollywood barrier would inspire millions of Asian Americans to pursue entertainment careers. He never got to see the lasting impact his films would have on cinema.
Act 4. The philosophy behind the barrier breaking. What's fascinating about Bruce Lee is that he didn't just break barriers physically, he broke them philosophically. He understood something that most people missed. Barriers aren't just external obstacles, they're also internal limitations. In his notebooks, Bruce wrote extensively about this. He wrote, "Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. The key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering." Bruce believed that most people are limited not by external circumstances, but by their own beliefs about what's possible. He saw people accepting limitations that didn't actually exist. He saw martial artists bound by rigid tradition. He saw actors of color accepting that they couldn't be action heroes. He saw people everywhere accepting that this is just how things are. And he rejected all of it. Bruce developed a martial arts philosophy that was revolutionary. He believed that martial artists should study all styles, not just one. He believed they should adapt and evolve constantly. He wrote, "Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is essentially your own." This wasn't just martial arts philosophy. This was a blueprint for life. It meant don't accept traditions blindly. Don't follow systems just because they're ancient. Instead, learn from everything. Keep what works, throw away what doesn't, and add your own innovation. This approach infuriated traditional martial artists. They accused Bruce of disrespecting the ancient ways. But Bruce understood that respect isn't about blind adherence. Respect is about taking something seriously enough to improve it. In his training, Bruce was obsessive about understanding the mechanics of power. He studied physics, anatomy, leverage. He filmed himself fighting and studied the footage frame by frame. He asked, "Why does this technique work? What's the underlying principle? Can I improve it?" Other martial artists thought he was crazy. They believed that martial arts was about transcendence, about spiritual connection, about mystical power. Bruce believed all of that could be true, but only if it was also grounded in physical understanding. Bruce wrote, "Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do." This became his life philosophy. He didn't just theorize about breaking barriers. He actually broke them. He didn't just talk about transcending limitations. He transcended them through relentless training, endless innovation, and absolute refusal to accept what others told him was impossible. One of his students said, "Bruce never accepted a limitation. Not his skinny body. He developed incredible power through proper technique and training. Not his accent. He became a movie star anyway. Not Hollywood's racism. He went to Hong Kong, succeeded, and then conquered Hollywood on his own terms. Not traditional martial arts. He created his own system. Every barrier he faced, he found a way through." But here's what's crucial. Bruce didn't break these barriers through rebellion for rebellion's sake. He broke them through mastery. He became so skilled at martial arts that he couldn't be ignored. He became so photogenic, so powerful on camera that he couldn't be overlooked. He didn't demand acceptance. He earned it through excellence. This is the difference between a barrier breaker and a martyr. Bruce Lee was a barrier breaker. He didn't sacrifice himself. He mastered himself and used that mastery to show that the barriers were artificial. Act 5. The Personal Philosophy and Legacy. What's remarkable about Bruce Lee is that despite his incredible success, despite achieving everything he set out to achieve, he remained humble and reflective. He continued to study, he continued to question, he continued to evolve. Bruce lived a disciplined life that most of us would find extreme. He trained every single day, sometimes twice a day. He kept detailed notebooks of his training, his philosophy, his observations about life and martial arts. Some of his notebooks had tens of thousands of words written in his own handwriting. He was obsessed with self-improvement, not for ego, but because he genuinely believed that we can always become better versions of ourselves. He wrote, "If you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them." But Bruce was also deeply humanistic. He wasn't just training for himself. He was training to show the world what was possible. He was breaking barriers to open doors for others. Bruce said, "I am not in competition with other martial artists. I am in competition with myself to be better than I was yesterday." This philosophy extended to his approach to teaching. Bruce didn't create a rigid hierarchy where students blindly followed the master. Instead, he created an environment where students were encouraged to question, to experiment, to discover their own path. Many of his students went on to become famous martial artists and actors themselves. One of his most famous students was Steve Reeves. Bruce told Steve, "Don't try to be like me. Be like yourself, but be the best version of yourself." This was revolutionary teaching. Most martial arts masters wanted to create clones of themselves. Bruce wanted to create fully realized individuals. In his personal life, Bruce was devoted to his wife Linda and their two children, Brandon and Shannon. He wasn't just a martial artist, he was a family man. He cooked for his family, he played with his children. He was tender and affectionate at home, completely different from his fierce persona on screen. Linda later reflected, Bruce never separated his martial arts philosophy from his personal life. He brought the same dedication, the same question of how to improve, the same desire for authenticity to his relationships as he did to his training. He was constantly trying to be a better husband, a better father, a better person.
Act 6. The Tragedy and Immortality. Bruce Lee died at 32 years old. He had just completed one film, Enter the Dragon, that would revolutionize martial arts cinema. He had so much more to do, so many more barriers to break, so many more stories to tell. His death was shocking and tragic. But what's remarkable is what happened after his death. Enter the Dragon was released and became a massive hit. Suddenly, the entire world understood Bruce's vision. Martial arts studios opened everywhere. Asian American children began seeing an action hero who looked like them on screen. Hollywood began making more martial arts films. Asian American actors began getting more opportunities. But more than that, Bruce's philosophy lived on. His notebooks were published. His films were studied. His teachings were preserved and shared. Universities began studying Bruce Lee as a philosopher, not just as an entertainer. Decades after his death, Bruce Lee's legacy hasn't diminished. If anything, it's grown. Martial artists around the world cite him as their inspiration. Actors cite him as a pioneer who broke barriers for Asian Americans in Hollywood. Philosophers study his writings on adaptation and evolution. Bruce's son Brandon became a martial arts film star himself, continuing his father's legacy. When Brandon tragically died in 1993, it seemed like the Lee legacy might end. But Bruce's daughter Shannon has dedicated her life to preserving and promoting her father's philosophy and teachings. Shannon said, "My father believed in continuous evolution and self-actualization.
He believed that every person has unlimited potential. He believed that the barriers we face are often self-imposed or culturally imposed, not inherent limitations. His philosophy is as relevant today as it was 50 years ago. What's extraordinary about Bruce Lee's legacy is that it transcends martial arts. His philosophy applies to every field. In business, entrepreneurs cite Jeet Kune Do principles. In psychology, therapists study his ideas about personal growth and self-actualization. In cinema, filmmakers study how he revolutionized action filmmaking. In social justice, activists cite how he broke racial barriers in Hollywood. Act 8. The institutional barrier and lasting impact. What's important to understand is that Bruce Lee didn't just break personal barriers. He broke institutional barriers. He showed that the system could be changed. Before Bruce Lee, the Hollywood studio system had already decided what Asian actors could do. They had created categories, limitations, roles. Bruce didn't just break the rules. He showed that the rules were artificial. After Bruce Lee, things began to change. Not immediately, not completely, but there was a shift. Asian American actors began to see that action hero roles were possible. Filmmakers began to see that Asian action heroes could make money globally. The barrier didn't disappear overnight, but it cracked. And once it cracked, it could never fully close again. Today, 50 years after Bruce Lee's death, we still don't have perfect representation in Hollywood. But the doors that Bruce opened are still open. Every Asian American action star owes something to Bruce Lee's pioneering work. Similarly, in martial arts, Bruce's philosophy revolutionized how martial arts are taught and understood. The rigid, tradition-bound systems began to evolve. Martial artists began to question. They began to innovate. The stagnation broke. But here's what's crucial. Bruce didn't break these barriers through complaint or protest. He broke them through mastery and excellence. He became so undeniably skilled that the system couldn't ignore him. He became so innovative in his philosophy that he couldn't be dismissed as just another martial artist. He became so charismatic on screen that he couldn't be overlooked as just another Asian actor. This is the model for breaking barriers, not through victimhood, not through complaint, but through becoming so excellent at what you do that excellence becomes undeniable.
Act 9. The call to action and final challenge. Now, here's what I want to ask you. What barriers have you accepted as real? Maybe you've accepted the barrier of age. I'm too old to start something new. Maybe you've accepted the barrier of background. I didn't go to the right school. I don't have the right connections. I'm not from the right family. Maybe you've accepted the barrier of race or gender or ethnicity. People like me don't do this kind of work. Maybe you've accepted the barrier of physical limitation. My body isn't built for this. Maybe you've accepted the barrier of tradition. This is how it's always been done. Bruce Lee faced all of these barriers, every single one, and he rejected all of them, not through wishful thinking, but through relentless training, continuous innovation, and absolute refusal to accept artificial limitations. Bruce taught us something crucial. The barrier is often not outside you, it's inside you. The barrier is in your belief that the barrier exists. But here's the hard part. Understanding this isn't enough. Knowing this isn't enough. You must apply it. You must do it. You must train. You must innovate. You must adapt. You must become so skilled in your field that excellence becomes undeniable.
You must refuse to accept the limitations that the system tries to impose on you. And you must do it not for yourself alone. You must do it to open doors for others. When Bruce Lee broke the Hollywood barrier, he didn't just benefit himself. He opened doors for generations of Asian American actors. He changed what was possible. He changed what the system could deny. When you break the barriers in your life through excellence and innovation, you do the same thing. You show others that it's possible. You crack the system. You make it harder for the system to exclude the next person who comes along. Bruce wrote, "The key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering." Your life is worth remembering if you use it to break barriers, not just for yourself, but for others. If you use your excellence to open doors, if you use your story to inspire others to reject artificial limitations. Coda, the unresolved question. But I want to leave you with an unresolved question, because Bruce Lee's life raises one. Bruce achieved everything he set out to achieve. He broke barriers. He revolutionized martial arts. He transformed cinema. He did this in just 32 years. But then he died. We don't know what else he might have achieved. We don't know what other barriers he might have broken. We don't know what other philosophies he might have developed. Some people look at Bruce's life and say, he did so much so fast, and then he was gone. His life was tragic because it was incomplete. But others look at Bruce's life and say, he proved that it's not about the length of your life. It's about the impact you have. It's about how you use your time. It's about whether you leave the world better than you found it. 50 years after his death, Bruce Lee's influence is still growing. His films are watched by billions. His philosophy is studied by millions. His barrier breaking continues to inspire. In that sense, Bruce Lee's life was not incomplete. It was perfectly complete because he lived it fully, purposefully, excellently. The question is, what will you do with your life? Will you wait for barriers to be removed, or will you break them yourself? Will you accept limitations, or will you transcend them? Bruce Lee would tell you, the answer is inside you. The power is inside you. The only barrier is your belief that the barrier exists. The question is, are you ready to move like water?